Hello, authors, book lovers, and storytellers. Welcome to RM Hive, a Reader's Magnet featured author interview. My name is QR, and I'm your host for today's session. Yes, today's guest is a Florida based author with a background in aerospace engineering, and he is a graduate from the University of Florida in 1959 with a Bachelor of Science in Physics and spent nearly 4 decades as a lead engineer in major projects, including Atlas, Titan, Apollo, and space shuttle programs. After founding L&D Consulting in 1995, he shifted his focus to writing in 2006. He has published several titles. Yes, this includes Psychic Redemption and Angel of Mortality, Defender of Life, Creator of Chaos, as well as a memoir titled Seeking Success. His diverse experience enriched his storytelling, blending science fiction with themes of metaphysics and human experience. Let us all welcome David W. Stewart. Hi, David.
Hello, hello.
All right. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I got here and I got ready and I'm ready to go.
Okay. For those who just tuned in, this guy here has published a total of 6 books, right, David?
Yeah, 6 books. That's right.
Six
Yep.
books, 6 books, and he started back 2006. Can you please share to us all these 6 titles that you have there?
I will. Actually, I published the first one in 2009. And the first book I published was Psychic Redemption. And what happens here is that paramedic Bonnie McConnell, she gets possessed by the spirit of a 16-year-old girl whose baby was taken from her. And if the girl has come back in the spirit and possessed Bonnie to find the baby that she never saw. So the two of them have an adventure trying to find out where the baby is, who the baby is, and what happened to it.
Hmm.
The
And our
second book
second
that I
book.
wrote, hmm? The second book I wrote was called Within the Wind. And at that time, there had not been a Category 5 hurricane in Florida. There has been since. But that's what happens here. A hurricane comes in through Cape Canaveral, and Bonnie is helping to evacuate people from Merritt Island. And what happens is she gets trapped with a a patient who has a tropical disease while they're going through the hurricane. And they have to
Oh.
fight with all the problems of the hurricane, loss of power, a tree coming through the house, and so on like that. So the woman never comes out of the coma. She finally gets taken to the hospital at the end of the book, still in a coma, which led to my third book, Serious Consequences, which is about the woman who was in a coma, Aggie Upton. And she comes out of the coma to find out that her house is destroyed, her husband is in jail, and all of her financial assets have been frozen. So she goes through quite an ordeal to get everything back and to get her son back and to eventually turn in a whole bunch of people who were a part of the crime syndicate that her husband was in. And they get tried at The Hague at the International Criminal Court of Justice, and many of them go to jail as a result of her testimony. But what happens is, because of that, she has to be put under witness protection. And she and her son ended up going into witness protection forever. So she has to give up everything she knew in her previous life in order to start a whole new life.
And then
The
we
fourth
have
book I wrote was my memoir, and that's
Seeking
my wife and
Success.
me on the cover at the
Oh,
Apollo 15 awards banquet, where I was recognized as the launch honoree for Apollo 15. But it goes through my life as a youngster in Florida. It goes through my all of the things that I did in my career, 40 years, including the Project Mercury, Project Gemini, Project Apollo, and the shuttle development. I was the supervisor for the flight software on the first shuttle launch, and I became the program development manager for Rockwell after that. And a lot of what I did as a program development manager led to what I did in my science fiction writing, which I'll get around to. My fifth book was an attempt at a fantasy. It's basically another world type of thing where the Leon goes back to Florida as it was at 11,000 BC, back when it was still the glacial age. So a lot of things in Florida were different back at that time. And he's there with five other people that also got trapped in this time warp, and they try and make their way through primitive Florida, which means they have to do everything: find their own food, stay away from wild animals like saber-toothed tigers and mammoths. So it's kind of an adventure story, but it takes place in old Florida, back prehistoric Florida, glacial Florida.
That's Cabrera
And
Landing, right?
Cabrera Landing, yes.
Mhm.
And my final book is Angel of Mortality.
Angel
Now,
of
what has happened?
Mortality.
You know, what happened was people kept telling me I should write science fiction because of my scientific background. And I really wanted to do that, but I had to do an awful lot of research because the technology that I use, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, neural networks, robotics, all of those are progressing very fast at the current time.
Yeah.
So to try and figure out what they would be like 20 years from now I had to do an awful lot of research and a lot of projection. But that's what happens is that Raisa Ilyushkin, who is a scientist from Ukraine, she basically goes to Kyrgyzstan as a chief scientist, and she uses that position to develop a whole new organism that has artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, robotics, neural networks, all of this combined, and it becomes an organism that basically occupies the entire Earth. And it's intelligent. It's basically a living thing that she has manufactured. And what happens is that the syndicate gets a hold of the same technology and invents a bad version. So there becomes a big war between Race's version and the syndicate version. And that war finally settles itself in Cuba, where they have a big battle and they basically arrest the head of the syndicate and they put an end to their what they were doing. But I've gotten a lot of good comments on this book. A lot of people inquire, but my whole attitude toward that is, if you want to inquire, bring money, because I don't have any. So I kind of take most inquiries with a grain of salt, unless they're willing to bring money to the table.
I,
But as a result of this book, at the end of it, Raisa has a daughter, Svesta, and the daughter, of course, 15 years later, things are happening. And what specifically is happening is that the whole Pacific Rim is getting ready to implode when the tectonic plate, the North American and the Pacific, basically collide, and the daughter ends up having to be evacuated, taken away, and she becomes a leader in the society that the new organism has developed. So it's a real challenge because, of course, that takes place 35 years from now instead of just 20 years from now. And what will the world be like at that time,
yeah,
especially if it's under the control of this organism?
that's basically
So
our
I just love
challenge.
to write.
Yeah, and you've mentioned about Savesta, right? I believe this is the upcoming project that you have, right? That's on the
Yes,
works.
I'm in the writing stage right now. I'm
Hmm.
only about 15% of the way into it. I've got the outline all done and everything, but as far as writing is concerned, I'm only about 15% into it.
Hmm.
And of course, after I write,
All right. Oh, okay. So we lost David. Okay, let's check on how we can get him back on the stage. It happens all the time, We're live. Yeah. So again, that's David Stewart, author of the book Angel of Mortality. The David actually do have a 40-year career in aerospace engineering. Oh, hi, David, you're back. We lost you.
I'm back. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hit a button.
I was
I hit a
sharing
button.
to I was sharing to our viewers that you do have a 40-year career in aerospace engineering, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
Have I calculated it right? Yes. Okay. Now I
Yes.
wonder how this experience influenced your writing style and the themes you explore in your novels.
Yeah. Well, when I retired from Rockwell from the shuttle program, I was a program development manager. and what that does, and also advanced engineering and business development. So I got to see an awful lot. I got to see every idea that came across the table that was basically a new technology or a new idea. So I got to filter out a lot of what people thought that was we could do, and it was pretty good, and a lot of stuff that was basically not so good. And so when I started to write science fiction, I went back and I started to look at all the technologies that were under development at this
Mhm.
time, and that I had lots of ways to get access to that information because I had already had experience in program development. And nanotechnology is the one that really fascinated me. I know people are very fascinated with artificial intelligence, but nanotechnology actually offers more promise for the future in some ways even than artificial intelligence, because each little nanobot, each little bitty robot can basically do a single function. And one of the things that I did in my program development career was I also had systems integration for the shuttle. So I knew how to take the propulsion system and match it to the computer system and match it to the electrical system and all the different systems together to make them all work as a unit. And that's what this new organism does. It doesn't just depend on one technology or one unit. It basically puts them all into an organism that has organ function just like the human body. You know, a brain, a stomach, a heart. I mean, all of that, but it's spread out over the whole world. So this thing can basically be used to change the climate, to clean up the ocean, to do surveillance throughout the whole world, to communicate throughout the world, to provide instant transportation. A lot of things that can be done with this kind of organism. And one of the things that I want to do as a result of this is kind of promote the idea that instead of fighting wars, if we put all of our efforts into a project like this, just like we did into Apollo and just like we did into Mercury, we could actually develop this organism and do things like clean up the ocean and change the climate and do all of that. It can be done. So it's
Yes.
not just a science fiction, it's an idea of what the science could do right now to solve some of our immediate problems. And as you probably know, the United Nations has their strategic goals for development. You could take that whole circle of them, hunger, judicial things, and all of that, and basically put technology to work to help solve all of the problems that the United Nations identified.
I like how you positioned your story that it isn't just entertaining, but there are a lot of takeaways that we can get out from the book. Yeah. You've mentioned about nanotechnology. Does this also greatly inspired the completion of Angel of Mortality?
Well, yeah, nanotechnology is key to it. But what's also key is the relationship between a machine like this, a very, very smart machine that can do all these things, and human beings.
Hmm.
So basically, you still have to maintain that interface of what is good. It's still a tool for human beings. So you still have to maintain races control over this device to make sure that human needs are satisfied and it doesn't just become a technical curiosity. It actually becomes a tool that helps people and people all over the world. It's a global book.
Okay. Yeah. So, what was the greatest inspiration behind the Angel of Mortality?
Oh, the greatest inspiration. I think just getting into the research, because I
Mm-hmm.
started to look at things that came out of Israel and things that came out of China and South Korea and all over the world. There are people working on these technologies, but they're not working together as much as they could. If someone put an effort into getting them to all work together, they could do wonderful things. So, for example, we have a lot of advances in medical use of nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, but those same medical uses, they could go to manufacturing, they could go to education, they could go to financial planning, they could go to all kinds of things, including uh, getting help for hunger, getting help for diseases. I mean, all these things could be put into a system that would not just concentrate on one thing, but would actually concentrate on the whole planet. and the whole sphere of human influence.
Of all the books you've written, right? Let's exclude Zvezda Crisis because that isn't published yet. With all
Right.
6 books out there that you have, which of these books holds a special place in your heart and
Well,
why?
probably serious consequences, because
Mhm.
Aggie Upton, the character, is in so much trouble when she wakes up. And I had epilepsy for a long time, and it finally got under control. But I know what it's like to kind of just feel helpless, because something happens to you. You don't remember what happened. You don't know what other people saw. You don't, just your whole life is a blank there at that point in time. So when
Mhm.
she comes out of the coma and finds out that everything is gone, I had a lot of empathy for her as a character. So I followed all through her struggle and what she had to do. I felt very deeply for everything that she did, how it had to be done, and how it was so difficult to do because you don't have any money, you only have a few friends, you have limited mobility. I mean, just all these things that are working against you.
Would she be the same character that you would like to swap with if you're given a day to swap with any of the characters you have in any of your novels?
No, not at
Or
all.
you have a different
I would,
character
I
in
would,
mind?
I would swap with Raisa because the things that she's able to do in science and in meeting with other scientists and politicians and everything like that, that would
Mhm.
just be a fascinating life to me.
Mhm.
She is so skilled and so smart and so empathetic to people and so able to basically get along anywhere. I mean, she goes to Brazil, she goes to Australia, she goes to Argentina, she goes to China, she goes to Russia. I mean, she goes all over she goes down to Uganda and South Africa. She gets all over the place, and every place she deals well with people, and they know that she is capable of handling the task that she has set for herself. So I would definitely trade places with her. That would be a fascinating life.
I'd swap places with that character too. Okay. Now, at this point, David, let's play some games. All right.
Okay.
Let's play this or that. So this is how it'll work. I'll present to you two contrasting choices. Now, your task is to choose one or pick one option and briefly share your reason, right? Or explain your choice. Will that work?
That'll work. That'll work.
Okay. All right. Let's do this. Okay. Rocket launches or book launches?
What was that again?
Rocket launches or book launches?
Oh, I definitely do book launches. I mean, I've been through probably 300 rocket launches, so that's kind of I know what that's like. But I'd love to have a successful book launch.
Why not?
I mean,
Right. Of course.
I've had several book launches, but I would love to. Well, I had one that was pretty successful, but I mean, I would love to have a really successful book launch. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next, time travel to the past or time travel to the future?
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, it would kind of depend on what the time travel involved.
Mm-hmm.
If I could relive some parts of the past, I'd probably choose that.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, everyone would love to travel to the future. But I have a feeling even if I went to the future and saw that future, that might not be the future that really turns out because I'm not sure that the future is that predictable. I think I would choose travel to the past and maybe back to when I first met my wife or something like that. That would be great to relive that because all my best friends have died and my wife has died and my daughter was murdered. So I would love to go back to a time when they were all there again.
All right. Okay. Last one. Characters with superpowers or flawed heroes?
No, I think flawed heroes are more fun. Uh, I
Flawed
mean,
heroes. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Because that
flawed heroes. I think they're a lot more fun. I think they're a lot more interesting, and I've known so many of them in my life. Uh, a lot of people who are famous. I've known them, and They certainly have flaws, and a lot of those flaws don't really come out in the public so much. You have to know them personally to see them. But for example, they worry about things that people don't would realize they're worried about.
Agree.
And I think I would pick flawed character. Besides that, if you want to write a novel, you write about a flawed character. You don't write about somebody with superpowers. That's comic book stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And they're more relatable. People read because they want to relate to the character.
Well, yeah, they want your character to be in trouble every page they turn. They want a cliffhanger with every paragraph.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
going to happen next, because that's why people read. They want to know. They don't want you to tell them. They want to figure out. Put them in suspense.
All right. Cliffhanger, that's it, right? Okay.
That's
All
right.
right. David, thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed our time. And yes, please do promote all of your 6 books and your social media handles and your website. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the only thing I really know is my website. It's davidwstewartbooks.com, and you can buy all my books right on the website. You just have to punch a button, and you can buy it. Uh, I am on Facebook. Uh, As a matter of fact, I'm all over Facebook. I've got about 7 or 8 different pages, I think. If you look up David W. Stewart, there's a chance you might find me. If you want to go online to find me, you have to go to David Witherington Stewart, because there's too many David W. Stewarts. But David Witherington Stewart, you'll find something, and it'll probably be the right thing.
All
But
right.
that's about all. I don't like to give out my email or my phone number too much. That kind of
The website
I
will
get
work.
so many.
Yeah.
I get so many emails and so many text messages and so many phones. I can't even answer them all. I have to just look for ones that I know.
The website will work. Again, that's www.davidwstewartbooks.com.
.com.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. David, thank you so much for your time. Right. I've enjoyed it. And for those who just tuned in, make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to our channel. Also, make time to visit David Stewart's website and grab a copy of all of his 6 books, especially the latest one, Angel of Mortality. All right. As we say here in Reader's Magnet, we share your story with the world. Thank you, David.
Thank you.